Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Product Stories. In this episode, we have Niket Kamath, who's a product designer at Onjuno. For the past 1 year, he has worked on various products and designed them as well. In this episode, we'll be talking about various topics like building and designing a fintech product for the US, building and designing the Corona tracker, and business competency for designers, and etc. I'm your host Kaushik Mulli, and you're listening to Product Stories.
Hey Niket, super glad to have you on Product Stories. Welcome, man. Welcome. Been looking forward to this episode for quite some time, and it's finally happening. We decided to do this quite some time ago. But
Yeah.
before we just get started with everything, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
So hey Kaushik, pretty excited to be here, and I hope this our convo helps all the listeners also. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm currently working at Onjuno as a product designer. I also worked on the other product Nova Exchange before, and yeah, so my day pretty much revolves around design, product, even like psychology, and like I also like to spend some time reading about gamification and stuff.
Mhm. Great, great. Something which I have been really looking forward to since we plan to make our podcast episode is to talk about the Corona tracker which you built in 2020, just when the pandemic
Yeah.
hit. So and not just building the tracker, but actually scaling it up to 5 million users. And if I'm not wrong, you also uh, you also made it live again during 2021 to help with
Yeah.
finding the adequate resources and everything. So I would definitely love it if you could talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, first of all, thanks to all the people who are involved in Corona Tracker. Like a lot of folks played their part, and that's how we could, get to like serving so many other people. So, I think when we started Corona Tracker, right, the main thing was to help people, but in return, we just got a lot of help, to understand how to build products and how to scale it to like millions of users. So yeah, so me and three of my friends, we were at a Blitz hackathon, and then we decided to build Corona Tracker. And at that time, I think only there were two cases in India, which were in Kerala. So we thought this was going to be a bigger problem much later, and we took our inspiration from the John Hopkins University ka dashboard, and we made like a mobile version of it. And initially, we launched like a PWA, so a progressive web app which would work for all the users, even Android, iOS, and we didn't have to build like an app, and users can even add it to their home screen, so it's not an issue going to the web browser again and again and opening the app. And I think the first problem statement that we encountered was people back then didn't have like a go-to platform to get like the verified data, and
Mhm.
it was not even a big deal back then because there were only two cases. People were not scared. So once the anxiety started building up, people were looking to go to a dashboard wherein they can see like the verified data. But as time passed, what happened is the number of cases were not scaring them enough, and then they were not worried about India ka cases. They were worried more about their safety and their area. So it was not about the numbers. After a while, it was more about who is the nearest case to me. So that's when we started working on like a map with like thermal heat map. So basically it gave all the data points of which area is like you know mostly contaminated with coronavirus and stuff like that. So after a point, even people, then another wave of problem came, which was about just tackling the fake news. So many people were spreading any rumors. Then even I think some higher authorities started giving out false numbers and stuff just to lessen the panic in people. So we started another way of maybe like using WhatsApp, Telegram, and Twitter to share like verified data with like daily stats and everything. So we after that problem statement, I think like personal safety became a smaller issue than financial safety. People started losing their jobs. And we also collaborated with some folks, which wherein we would post jobs on our website, and people can also apply to them, or if suppose they have any jobs, they can even apply like job openings on our website. So as we worked on it, the problems kept changing in the user's journey. And also, we during this whole time we participated in hackathons, so we got to know a lot of other like-minded folks with whom we can collaborate with. And also, yeah, so that was one main reason, how we went about solving the problems. And also recently, as you mentioned, we restarted it again, during the second wave, wherein we would just help people get to verified resources and amplify their, whatever needs. So whatever they wanted, we would just amplify it from our Twitter account. And yeah, so during all of this, there were some news media publications about us, some big people in the industry tweeted about us. We also did some growth hacks and stuff, which gave us a lot of users. But I think the main reason which helped us scale a lot to almost serving around like 7 million now in the second wave, I mean overall, to now like around 7 million people and around, I think, 10,000 Android app downloads, is the main reason is, I think, we could understand the problems when they were changing in the user's journey, and we were quick enough to act on it. So yeah, I think all these things, right? The news publications, people tweeting about us, all the growth hacks that we did helped us scale. But I think the main thing that helped us scale the best is just understanding at what time what the problems were. So introducing numbers when they were important, introducing the map when it was important. And second thing is, we didn't make it all about ourselves. So we were open to collaborating with people. And I think like this was such a big problem, we couldn't have done it ourselves. So we never made it about ourselves. Then also, I think it was an important understanding to know when to have like a converging approach and when to have like a diverging approach. And what I mean by that is, as designers, sometimes we think about the small things first. Like let's say if we want to add any feature to the tracker, we would think about how the whole navigation would be, or how the user comes to this page or something. So we did not waste much time at that time. We had like a very converging approach, wherein we started off with the bigger thing, and then we decided about the navigation and everything later. So as a designer, that was like a good learning to me, when to think in this way and when to think in that way. And yeah, I think these were like the main learnings that we had while building Corona Tracker, that helped us scale it to a lot of users.
Definitely, man. I mean, it was more than just that. It was like a brilliant initiative which you and the people you are
Thanks.
collaborating, which you took forward.
Mm.
And I'm sure, like it was super helpful for people along the way. I mean, that's like definitely the reason you are able to scale it to so many users. And as you said, right, always understanding the user's needs and understanding the user's
Mm.
problems first and keeping them uh, right in the front and right at the top of priority list. I think that's what really helped you and your team to build like a great tracker. um, like talking about users, talking
Yeah.
about projects, let's probably talk about something which both of us are working on right now, which is building a product which is on Juno. It's an I mean, just to give audience some context, it's a neobank, and we are building from India for US audience. Uh, so one of the things which all of us when we get started face a problem is that how do we relate? How do we try to understand things related to the US? How do we build a product while being in India for the US when majority of our team has never been to the US? So why don't
True.
you go
Yeah.
ahead and talk about your side of the story, and then I'll probably add my points.
Sure, yeah. So, uh, so talking about Onjuno, right? I think I'm lucky enough to have worked on both the apps that we were building. One was a US focused app, one was an India focused app, which was Nuo. So I think one really great understanding I've learned about building for US and building for India is that in the end the problems which people have are almost like they are the same, but they're still very different because they value different things and the way they go about solving their problem is different. For example, if it's something like McDonald's, they have like they are in US as well as India, but the way they go about serving the Indian audience is much different with a different menu. So I think the Indian audience values a much different thing. If it's something like Netflix, they would have like different plans for India, like a 199 mobile plan. So Indian people, I think, don't value that much, or they have different ways to solve their problems, wherein they don't focus much on exclusivity, the brand, and everything. So they just want content in the end of the day, and once that is solved, they are okay with the whole thing. So yeah, I think that was one great understanding to like how things work in India and how things work in the US. So knowing that people are different, I think the most useful thing that we have done in the company is just set up a lot of user interviews to understand what is happening there better in the US. So I think like the design team is involved, product team is involved. When we just talk to the users, we just get much more real on ground insights of these users and what kind of how they go about solving their problems and what they value most, while going about solving their problem is like yeah, user interviews is I think the key to whatever, understanding all of this.
Yeah, definitely. I can also vouch for that. Qualitative research definitely helps a lot, especially the user interviews
Mhm.
which we take, where where we are complete where we are introduced to a completely different way of approaching a problem, or seeing a user solve the problem in a very different manner. It really sheds light on the things which we wouldn't have known. But at the same time, I think something which is super important, which we kind of passively do, or just sometimes even actively, is trying to understand the culture, the difference in culture which comes in both the countries, right? The US and India. At the same time, things like buying behavior. So I can still remember the first few months when I joined. I would just go to YouTube and watch, um, videos on how Americans shop. How is it different from what we do in India? Why do they shop so much in Costco? Why do they shop so much in Walmart? Right? All these things were like unknown things to me. At the same time,
Yeah.
reading a bunch of things about how finance is so different in the US, how financial priorities are different in comparison to India, really helped me try to empathize with the user, um, in the US. So I think that's definitely something important for anyone who's trying to build product for another country, which is having empathy for the
Mhm.
user and understanding the user's goals primarily.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
talking about Noah, talking about Anjuno, I remember that you started out with Juno as with Anjuno as a UX research intern, and then
Mhm.
you moved to being a product designer, which is basically a generalist role versus something like UX research, which is a specialized role, right? So I probably would
Mhm.
love if you could probably talk about the differences between being a generalist and being a specialist, and probably if you have like a preference and why do you prefer that, that would also be great.
Sure. Yeah. So like yeah, as you mentioned, I started off as a user research intern, and so what I mean by a specialist is somebody who possesses like detailed knowledge on of a restricted topic, like somebody like a motion designer, UX researcher, interaction designer, somebody like that. And a generalist would be somebody who knows, decent amount of each field. So let's say if it's just like something like form of visual design, it can be somebody who knows a bit of 3D, bit of UI UX, a bit of, let's say, just illustrations, working on different platforms. And he also has like an idea of all the things happening around design, like product, product business, the market, user psychology. All of these form like a big chunk of design. So somebody who can find and take like a common denominator from each field and apply it to its design process is, to me, like a generalist. And I prefer being a generalist who does not spend too much time on just getting better at a one particular skill, but also understanding all the other aspects around it. And yeah, while we are on this topic, I just remember this one tweet which Paras Chopra posted recently. uh, I think he said, if you're a generalist, you'll not be paid as highly as a specialist, but you'll never be out of a job. So yeah. So I
Yeah,
think in your early days, yeah, sorry.
I can definitely relate to that part where when I was a freelancer, as a generalist, I literally never ran out of clients, or never ran out of projects, because I had so many diverse skill set that it I used to always get like a one or two projects out of nowhere somehow. Right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that point.
And I think like early in your career, I think it makes much more sense to be, generalist and open to saying yes to all the design opportunities that you get. Like, I think if I had said no to a UX research like internship, like I would have been like completely, in a completely different place. But now, understanding a bit of research, understanding a bit of product design helps me a lot as a designer. I think as you grow in your career, you can kind of decide to become a specialist, because I think even that has kind of its advantages, like better pay if your goal is that you get to focus on one particular thing only. And also I think it is slightly helps you a bit more to stand out from the other designers because you are a specialist in one particular thing. But yeah, I think like
Yeah.
you end up like losing a lot of stuff in in your early days if you just want to be like a specialist.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is something, one of this is a topic which I discussed with one of my previous guests also, where he talked about how a generalist designer usually has like a T-shaped skill set, and previously, like, a generalist designer was someone recognized as, someone who could code, or like what used to happen was
Hmm.
generalist designers used to be confused with a full stack designer, right? Where where the designer used to be confused with someone who could code, someone who could probably do front end, right? But the definition has evolved so much over time. As you mentioned, right? Things like, business competency, things like copywriting, things like understanding marketing, things like having few other design related skill sets like, motion design, etc. Like, and one of the things which you mentioned was one of the important things which you mentioned was having like a T-shaped skill set, which is
Hmm.
where the horizontal part, like, forms like, multiple skill sets which we were just talking about, and there is one vertical part which is, you know uh, having in-depth knowledge about that particular area. So it can be like, it can be something related to UX design, or it can be something related to UI design, or it can be something even as different as like, having just a right business acumen, right? Which
Hmm.
kind of defines the kind of generalist designer that person becomes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think like every designer should, not focus on being a specialist early in their careers, because, like I think I value a general designer more because, like there is, first of all, there is much better job security. It's easier to get jobs if you're a generalist. And you also get a variety of challenges to work on. You get to participate in more cooler things instead of just focusing on one thing. And I think when you try spending time on all these things like product marketing, business, you also get like better ideas as a designer, and it's also easier to like connect dots. So if there is something like how X connects Y, like let's say if suppose an example wherein a business is going like downhill, and if you are focusing as a designer only on the visual part to make it a bit better looking and stuff, like you won't be able to help the company. And on the other hand, if you know something about, let's say, like human psychology or something, you can just trigger the right emotions and ultimately improve the whole user experience. And I think the main reason, like why I feel it is better to be a generalist early in your career, is as you like progress in your career, it's just much easier to work with people from different backgrounds. So it's much easier to collaborate with the product team, much easier to collaborate with the engineering team, as you said. Like knowing a bit of code always helps, and marketing team, it always helps to be like a generalist early in your career.
Yeah, definitely. Coming to the various skill sets, one tries to develop when they're a journalist, right? Which is one of those skill sets is obviously the business competency, which we were talking about. So you actually did like you were part of the very first cohort of Stoa school. So I would probably want you to talk a bit about that. Probably even talk a bit about what Stoa school is, because some of the audience might not have context about it.
Yep, sure. So yes, as you said, I was part of Stoa's first, the premier cohort, and they have, I think currently they're in the second cohort. Anybody who wants to check out Stoa, just go to stoaschool.com/MBA. So they're currently running like a MBA program for 6 months, wherein they teach you all about, all the things in the MBA, like a crash course of sorts. So basically finance, marketing, branding, all of that. And so yeah, how my journey in Stoa was that I know Raj personally as a friend, and I thought, when I wanted to learn something apart from design, so let's say a bit of business, I think Stoa would be. I thought that Stoa would be like a great Kickstarter to help me in the whole business journey. So yeah, now I think the way it has helped me knowing a bit about, after the Stoa course and knowing a bit about business, is I think I can just make more sense of all the numbers that we discuss in the company, right? Like the metrics, funnels, the click through rate, user retention, all of that. I think now I just understand it much better after going through that course. And I also get to have like better conversations with some of the top folks in the company, like the founders and stuff, wherein I know something about business. So I can just add more value to the conversation whenever we are having them. And apart from only like designing for business, designing for growth, I think it has also given me enough knowledge to you know build my own company also, like sometimes.
Definitely. That's very true. That as a designer, it's important for a designer to also understand the business aspects of the company, not just from a design point of view or an engineering point of view anymore, but also the business aspect, how things are changing, how it affects the way we build the product or shape the product as well. Coming to the part where talking about probably starting your own company, like uh, we
Mhm.
don't generally like find a lot of designers starting company. It's very few cases, and one of the cases which I know about is Airbnb, where the founders were
Yeah.
actually like designers themselves. So and you can actually
Mhm.
see the kind of influence the design has uh, in shaping the business and in shaping the company that Airbnb is. So probably would love to know your thoughts about how uh, you know des- designers who eventually become founders can shape products or shape business.
Yep, yep. Just adding to that list of designers who are like great founders, right? I was just researching on it and I found out, a lot of apps that I go to frequently have been built by designers. So Twitter was like a designer, founder, co-founder. Then, sorry, not Twitter. So Twitter and Square Cash, Jack Dorsey has had some design background, not exactly a designer, but
Mhm.
YouTube, Notion, Airbnb. So yeah, coming to your earlier question, right? Like why I think founders would make like sorry, why designers would make really good founders is that I think one key thing that a designer understands is the users and their needs, the interactions with the user. So no, not like the other people don't understand, but I think the designer just spend more time understanding this than other people. So it just helps them, be better founders. And so designers also craft their whole career around, fast problem solving and focus about around, like finding patterns, doing problem analysis, discovery, uh, and finding like good references. And I think this is like the main part of design thinking, right? Like just understanding patterns, doing problem analysis, exploration. So I think this is like one key feature which helps, any designer to think like a founder and grow their company to a good extent. Uh, I wouldn't say all designers will end up as good founders and not only like designers make good founders. There are a lot of, uh, like what do you say? Like, I mean, of course, it's not true completely, but
Mhm.
yeah, designers, and also because they have a lot of empathy towards the users, right? I think it just like one main thing which helps designers understand users better. That's why getting to a much better company than most of the other founders.
Yeah, definitely. I think the empathy part is really true. You keep the user's need first while
Hmm.
understanding the business needs as well. I think that's like a perfect combination for anyone starting a company or anyone just building a product. To be honest, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely true. But let's probably take like the conversation in another direction, which is let's talk about junior designers, right? Most I mean, even we are technically junior designers. We
Yeah.
and something which I have noticed about you is that you have been constantly growing as a designer ever since I met you, and you have been constantly improving your skills as a designer as well, right? So probably one or I would like if you talk more about how designers can consistently keep growing at their roles at the same time, uh, keep exploring new skills, right? That's something you actively do.
So, like my advice for anyone, who designer who wants to keep improving himself would be first would be just surround yourself with like driven folks. They can be somebody who know less than you or more than you, but as long as they are driven and they motivate you to become a better designer every day, I think that's the main like the biggest thing. If suppose even if you find like some mentor, but he's pretty relaxed because he knows a lot of things, like you won't feel that motivation coming inside from you. So surround yourself with like people who are driven. Also, don't just stick to reading or consuming content around design only. Read other stuff around design. Like it can be product, maybe a bit, understanding how code works or understanding how businesses or how markets, or let's say like if suppose we are working at Honjuno, it's very important for us to know how the whole fintech industry works, how the market around finance works. So yeah, so don't stick to only design when it comes to improving your skill set. And also yeah, just keep giving forward. You don't essentially need to give back, because I think most of the designers, like especially on Twitter, whenever they help out other young designers, they don't expect them to help them back, but more just to give forward to other designers when they have some experience in their life. they can just guide the other junior designers. So yeah, I think that would be like my 2 3 points just to help these designers get better at their craft.
Yeah, definitely. And I also really like the point about, don't just stick to reading just about design, but explore other things. Because I think I remember this tweet which said something, which was something on these lines, that the best UX books are not about UX, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's something that people should always think about. And at the same time, I clearly remember this podcast episode with I can't recollect the guest name, but he was someone who was talking. He was someone from Uber who was talking about how the process of storytelling, how designers can learn the ability of storytelling through reading fiction, right? That's something
Mhm.
which I don't think is commonly, like, comes as a recommendation or something. But that's definitely true. Fiction is, like, reading fiction is one of the best ways to learn how to do storytelling. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't the advice of don't just stick to reading only design related resources is definitely important. So we have actually reached to the end of this episode. So I usually end my episodes with a rapid fire question. So I usually ask my guests like 5 questions. So let me know whenever you're ready, and we can just get started with the. Okay, so let me start with the very first question. The first question is your favorite designer.
So I think in India, I think I look forward to the most is I think Saptarshi Prakash and Amritpal Design, because they also, of course, they work at their own companies, but also they have like a really good interest in doing like other side things. Like Amritpal Design has a lot of other side gigs that he does, which really interests me.
Definitely. Um, the next question would be your favorite design resource.
I think UI8.net, like it's just like filled with all the stuff you need.
Definitely, definitely. It's a really good resource. If anyone, for people who are listening, you should definitely go check it out. They have some brilliant resources which you can use. Coming to next question, Dribble or Behance?
Behance,
Okay. Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter, like any day, Twitter.
One thing you wish you knew when you were starting out in design.
That design is not only about UI UX. Like I thought it was only about designing screens and making things look prettier. But as you like learn more about design, like as you said, like it becomes like design becomes something else. Like something like storytelling or fiction. It becomes much more. So when I started out, I think it was just about designing screens, and by just growing my skill set, like taking user interviews, doing all the user flow journeys and everything. I think, yeah, if somebody had given me that clear idea that it was not only going to be about putting pixels on screen, I think, yeah, that would have been a much, like I think I would have just progressed faster as a designer.
Yeah, definitely. I can also personally relate to this, right? Because there were so many aspects about research, so many aspects about the user experience, which I kind of never understood or kind of skipped when I was starting out as a designer. But I'm glad I realized it soon that it's not all about putting together pixels, but it's also
Mhm.
more on the lines of how it works and how things function and why we are doing something or why we are taking a particular decision.
True. Yeah.
Anyways, man, we have reached all the end of the episode. We have finished all the questions as well. It was super great to have you on the podcast.
Yep.
It was
Thanks
a
for
really fun
having me.
episode. I definitely enjoyed talking about things like how we build a product for another country altogether while being in India. So it was super fun. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for having me. Yeah. And I think like I hope all the people who have like listened to this get some insights and some help. So yeah.
yeah, definitely. I'm sure my conversation with you has added a lot of value to the people who are listening to this episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Product Stories for more such episodes.